calculation. As shown in the title, I have really tried to simplify it for you. I can assure you, like, ഇതിനെക്കഴിഞ്ഞും കൂടുതൽ simplify ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റില്ല. അതുപോലെ I have made it like, so I'm not wrong. Don't worry, I'm not going to teach you formulas, okay? I'm going to restrict my formula slides to very minimal. Basically, I'm going to tell you what is the concept behind all this, what is the funda behind all this, okay? So that when you look at the formula, it's not like you're looking at something strange. You will have some sense of what each means. Hmm? So that at the end of the session, if you can make understand what each formulas or formulae, what each thing stands for, that is good enough. Nobody expects you to remember this formula. Even after working on these formulas for so many years, even we find it difficult to memorize it. So don't worry about that. So let's start. So why is sample size important? For you, it is important because that's one of the most important reason the protocol that you submit gets rejected. And second thing, as because of at least some of you would be wanting to get into academics and you want your thesis published, or your guide want your thesis to be published. So when you try to publish it, if you don't have enough sample size, it it is not good enough to, it won't get published. That's a very simple reason. So I want to tell all of you that you all should publish your thesis. You're spending so much time on it. So whether you're getting into a medical college or getting into health service or private sector, you have to publish your thesis. Then the third thing is that when you are going through the evidence, when you become practitioners, clinical practitioners or otherwise, when you are going through evidence, you should be able to look into a paper and see whether the evidence that they are talking about, whatever they are talking about, has been based on a good enough sample size. If you feel that they have made a recommendation based on a study which is not strong with the good enough sample size, you need not accept that evidence at all. So that is why sample size is more important. For you, it is most important because that's the most important reason why your protocol gets rejected. Give me a minute. Let me just shut the door because there is so much noise coming in. Okay, so what are we trying to do here? To get the true value, we need to study everybody. Suppose I want to get the mean hemoglobin value of everybody in Kottayam district. I have to measure everybody's hemoglobin, add it up and divide by the total number of people in Kottayam. Okay. So that is the correct way of doing it. Only if you do that, you will get the true value. But then we don't have the time or money for this. Okay. So we can only study a small sample. So what is the good enough number of sample size which we can have to get to the true value is the question. Since we can't study everybody, we can only study a few. So how many should we study to get the true value with some reasonable amount of assurance or goodness? That is what, okay, which is enough. That uh, that is the thing we are trying to do. So we are trying to reach the unreachable. Okay, the unreachable is the true value. It is there. It is excess. There is a mean hemoglobin value of all the males in Kottayam district. There is, but since we can't get that, what can we infer from a sample is what we are trying to do. Okay, this is one of my favorite movies. Most of you must have seen it on Netflix. It's streaming in Netflix. It's called 2 Weeks Notice, and in that, the in Sandra Bullock, who's playing the lead role, asks Hugh Grant, "I think you are the most selfish human being on the planet." Then he says, "That is just silly. Have you met everybody in the planet? Unless you have met everybody in the planet, how can you say who is the most selfish human being?" Okay. So it is only if you study everybody, you can make a proper comment on who is the most selfish or what is the correct value. But since you can't do that, you have to make a compromise. So what is the required sample size? The question is, what is the required sample size? So suppose I ask you, ask one of you that how much money do I need for a vacation to Ooty? Is Srija here or she's in COVID duty? Srija is here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Srija, I will catch on to you. Is Bilal there? Last time it was Srija, so this time I'll catch Bilal. Bilal is there? Bilal is not there. Okay, anyway, Srija, if somebody asks you how much money do I need to go to Ooty, will you be able to give a straight away answer to it?
No, ma'am. It
No.
depends on many factors.
Very good. What all would you ask that person?
First of all, in which way you are going? Actually, bus or
Are you
taking
taking a bus? Are you taking a car? Or train? Train, first class, second class, third class, unreserved?
Yeah.
Okay. So how are you going?
Then in which type of hotel you want to stay? A budget hotel or a resort or luxury
Okay,
type?
very good. Very good. One more important thing. How many days are you staying in Ooty?
Yeah.
That's also very important, right? Okay. So then what all are you planning to do there? So many things. Okay. So like that, the sample size is also, it's not one size fit all. Sample size will depend on lots of factors. Just like Srija said, lots of factors. And who decides on these factors? Who decides that whether I'm going on first class or second class? It is me, okay? So there are some standards which are set by the person who travels, but there are accepted standards. You can't travel, okay, I will say a doctor, you are all doctors. So it's like, you can't expect a doctor to travel in third class and go to a very low class accommodation and call it a vacation. Okay, so to call it a vacation, it need to have some amount of standards. So standards are set by the investigator in sample size also, but there are certain accepted standards. I'll give you one more example. What can you make with all this? Anybody? What if you are given all this? What will you make? What you feel like having now? Who was the surgery PG I just talked to? I'm very bad at remembering names.
Amal. Yeah, man. Amal.
Amal,
Ah.
you want to have some kanji, and what will you make with all this?
This is നല്ല മാങ്ങ ചമ്മന്തി ഉണ്ടാക്കാം.
Okay, fine, very good, excellent. Huh? So this you can make a chutney with all this. Okay, but suppose I make you a chutney which is very salty and say that okay, this is chutney, you will not accept, right? So uh, I'll put lots of chilies in it and give it to you, you will not accept it. So there are standards set by the investigator in sample size also, but there are certain accepted standards. Okay, you can't just make a chutney and give it to somebody and say, okay, this is my standard. Okay, it doesn't matter it's salty or doesn't matter it's too hot for you to eat. This is my sample size. Huh? You better deal with. No, you can't say that. So there are sample size is like calculation is, it has got certain ingredients. You put all that together, all the ingredients in the formula you put together and you get an answer. But it is different for different study designs. So this is not manga chutney undakunna pole alla veru chutney undakkum, pudina chutney undakkum. So different designs have different ingredients. But there are some standards that the investigator can decide, but there are some accepted standards you have to stick to it. So what if you don't stick to the accepted standards? Nobody will eat your chutney. Just like that, if you don't stick to certain standards, nobody will believe your evidence. Nobody will buy your evidence. So because you have not done enough samples. So that is about sample size. Sample size is only about ingredients in the formula. So let us see what these ingredients are. So statisticians are often consulted for sample size. You will have to go to community medicine department to calculate your sample size. I don't expect you at the end of the class to learn everything about sample size. You can sit and calculate it yourself. Some of you may be smart enough to do that. So most of you will go to community medicine for your sample size calculation. So what I'm going to tell you is that when you go to community medicine, what all should you carry in your bag when you go shopping for sample size? If you carry certain things in your bag and go sample size shopping to community medicine, at one go you can get your sample size. Okay. Otherwise, they will ask you lots of questions. You won't be able to answer it. They will tell you, like, we have some certain dialogues. ഇതുപോലെ അറിയത്തില്ലേ, നിങ്ങൾ എന്താ ചെയ്യുന്നത് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് അറിയത്തില്ലേ. So that forgive us all. Okay, we all do that. എല്ലാവരും അവരവരുടെ ജാട കാണിക്കാൻ എടുക്കുന്ന ഒരു സമയത്ത് സാമ്പിൾ സൈസിന് വരുമ്പോഴാണ് കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റി മെഡിസിൻകാരുടെ ജാട കാണേണ്ട വരുന്നതെന്ന് വിചാരിച്ചാൽ മതി. പക്ഷേ if you are smart enough and carry the right ingredients in your bag, at one go to community medicine, you can get your sample size done. So please listen to the class and make sure you know what to carry to community medicine when you go sample size shopping. Okay. So this is just an example. I wanted to find, just look at this. I wanted to find the mean height of first year MBBS students to stitch lab coats for them. Okay. There is a spelling mistake, to stitch lab coats for them. So what I asked the representative to give me the height of 20 students. Okay, there were 100 students. So I thought I'll take a sample of 20 students and give me the height. So I got the height and added it up and divided the number by 20 and found the mean height. It was 175 centimeters. But when I saw them, I felt that there was something wrong. 175 up. I didn't feel that they were that tall people. Okay, so what I did, I called the representative and I asked him how did he get these figures for me. Okay, so he said the first 5 he picked from the basketball court and wrote down their heights as told by them. He asked them, what is your height? And they told their height and he wrote it down. For the rest, he selected 15 more whom he caught hold of from class and measured it himself. So when I cross-checked with him, he said some were wearing shoes and some weren't. Okay. So what could have gone? So I am sure that it is wrong. You all know it is wrong. So what do you, if I do it again, how should I do it differently? Can someone, Shamili, can you tell me? Shamili was the medicine PG, no, whom I talked to? Can you tell me what I did wrong? Did I do anything wrong?
Madam, question repeat.
You heard the story. You heard the story. 100 പേരുടെ pocket mean height എടുക്കണമായിരുന്നു. So I decided to take 20 people. അത് അപ്പോൾ അവരുടെ mean height measure ചെയ്ത് I got it as 175. I felt there was something wrong with it. There was something wrong. So I went and checked with the representative how he gave me that number. So he said, ഞാൻ ബാസ്കറ്റ്ബോൾ കോർട്ടിൽ കണ്ട ആദ്യത്തെ 5 പേരെ എടുത്തു. പിന്നെ ബാക്കി 15 പേരെ ഞാൻ ക്ലാസ്സിൽ നിന്ന് എടുത്തിട്ട് ഞാൻ തന്നെ മെഷർ ചെയ്തു. പക്ഷെ മെഷർ ചെയ്തപ്പോൾ ചിലർ ചെരിപ്പിട്ടിട്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്നു, ചിലർ ചെരിപ്പിട്ടിട്ടില്ല. So the 175 centimeter mean I got is wrong, right? So yes, if I do it again, how should I do it?
Standard measurement.
അതായത് സ്റ്റാൻഡേർഡ് ആയിട്ട് സ്റ്റേഡിയോമീറ്റർ വെച്ച് പൊക്കം എടുക്കണം. അത് മതിയോ? വേറെ എന്തെങ്കിലും പ്രശ്നമുണ്ട്? Is there anything wrong with
basketball court എന്ന്
ബാസ്കറ്റ്ബോൾ കോർട്ടിൽ നിന്ന് എടുക്കുന്നോണ്ട് എന്താ പ്രശ്നം?
അവര് മാഡം അത്ലറ്റ്സ് അല്ലേ മാഡം, അപ്പൊ അവര് ഹൈറ്റ്.
പക്ഷെ have you noticed there are a lot of northeast students who are very interested in sports? What if they are those people? They are really short, no? You can't just assume that everybody who plays basketball is. So you can't assume anything, okay? You can't assume they're tall, or you can't assume. You don't know. So you can't just simply pick people, okay? Anything else in that? How I did what in basketball court? Anything else which is wrong?
Shoes.
Shoes, she said I should use a stadiometer and do the correct procedure. Anybody? He said the first 5 he picked from the basketball court and wrote down their heights as told by them. Anything wrong?
Told by
Vidya.
them.
Vidya, anything? What is wrong with that? Vidya. Vidya, can you unmute?
Ma'am,
What is wrong with that?
we should measure.
We should measure because we can't trust them. They might tell you something wrong. I have to measure it them myself. Okay. So what I did was, okay, there is no point believing the representative. I decided to do it myself. So I randomly generated 20 numbers under 100. So I went to the computer and I told the computer, give me 20 random numbers under 100. So the computer gave me 20 random numbers like 7, 16, 37, 20, 90. The computer gave me 20 random numbers. Okay. So what I did, I made a list of all the male students of first MBBS, and that list, I took the number of the randomly generated numbers. Suppose random number, computer gave me random number 7. I went and saw who number 7 was, and it was Abhishek. So I took Abhishek and made him stand against the wall, or took a stadiometer, and I correctly measured. I know I've been trained in taking heights. So I correctly measured Abhishek. Then the next random number was 14. So I called 14. Okay. He was absent. So I made him come again the next day. When he was present, I took his measurement. Like that, each person I called and I measured their height using a stadiometer after taking off their footwear. I got the mean height as 165 centimeters. Now there's nothing wrong, no? Okay. So then I went and I stitched lab coats for them, but it didn't fit. ചിലർക്ക് നീളം കൂടുതലായിരുന്നു, കോട്ട് ഫിറ്റ് ആയില്ല. But all together it was okay. Okay. So, but then I realized that when I had to measure their heights myself as part of the medical examination, when I measured all their heights, all the 100 people I had to measure. Earlier I measured only 20, no? I found the mean height was 168 centimeters. Okay, so as part of the medical exam, so just I'll recap what I did. I generated 20 random numbers. I made sure that I caught hold of that person itself. Okay, I took their height correctly as per the textbook without any error. I took their height and I measured them. Okay, but when based on that, I went and stitched the lab coats. But when I measured all their heights, all the 100 people I measured, I added up all their 100 people's heights and divided it by 100. I got the mean height as 168. Okay, but when I took 20 people, I got the mean height as 165. Just all of you understood what I did and what was the problem with, I mean, what happened to me. All of you understood that? Okay, I hope there are chat boxes. Somebody is saying yes. Are they saying yes? All of you understood what I did. Another sample size on Allah. Just what I did, all of you understood, right? Nobody is saying. Any response, Devraj?
No, madam, nothing yet.
Oh, okay. Vidya, you understood what I did, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Got a
Okay,
message
so
now.
okay, messages are coming. So this, just keep it in mind. Okay, just keep it in mind what I did. Now we will go to the sample size formula, sample size actual calculation, and come back to this. So we all know something about sample size. We all know. Only thing is that we have not tried to given it a proper thought. So let's try and answer these questions. All of you try and answer these questions. Yes or no, whatever, in a piece of paper or at least in your mind. Will you need to study lots of people to find out the prevalence of a rare condition? Think about it. Will you need to study lots of people to find out the prevalence of a rare condition? Just write down your answer. I'm not going to ask you. Just think about it. There is a rare condition. You want to find out how many people are there with that condition in their OPD or in the community or whatever. Okay. Next question. What sample size would be needed if the investigator wanted the answer to be very close to the true value? Like stitching a lab coat is okay. Okay. I need to have some round measurement. Okay. But what if it is your kurta that you're going to wear for your wedding? What if it is your, it is a top for your, for a reception party that you're wearing? Huh? So somebody wants something to be very, very close to the true value. Do you have to study lots of people or you have to study less people? What sample size would be needed if the investigator wanted the answer to be very close to the true value? Okay. Or around the value is required. Okay. ലാബ് കോട്ട് ഇച്ചിരി കയറിയാലും ഇറങ്ങിയാലും വലിയ പ്രശ്നമൊന്നും ഇല്ലെങ്കിൽ ട്രൂ വാല്യൂവിന് അടുത്തൊക്കെ കിട്ടിയാൽ മതിയെങ്കിൽ ഒത്തിരി പേരെ പഠിക്കണം. അതോ true value, if you want to get the true value itself, you have to study everybody. Okay, so what sample size is required, big or small, if the answer to be very close to the true value? Next question. If the investigator wants to be able to detect a difference between two groups which is very small. Okay, there is one drug which reduces the BP by 1 millimeter. Okay, and there is another drug which reduces the BP by 10 millimeters. So to bring, if you're comparing both with an already accepted one, if the difference that you're going to bring out is 10 millimeter, do you have to study more people? Or 1 millimeter, you want to study more people? Two drugs, the difference that they are going to bring, the difference in the difference, okay? Both will bring down BP. So one brings it down drastically, one brings it down a little bit. So if that difference of the difference is how big? If it is big, do you have to study lots of people or otherwise? Understood? Okay. Well, let's say oxygen saturation of COVID patients. Oxygen saturation of COVID patients and with COPD and oxygen saturation of COVID patients without COPD. Both group has COPD. One group has COVID and the other group does not have COVID. So do you have to study lots of people to bring out the difference or very small people? So the difference you're going to bring out, if it's small, do you have to study more people or less people? What sample size is required if there was a very large variance? Okay. So think about first MBBS students' height and first MBBS students' weight. Okay, first MBBS students BP, I would say BP. Which will require more people? Which will need a more sample size? Think about it. Think about the height difference of people who come in and think about the difference in the systolic BP of people who come in. If there is much variation, I think the BP will be more or less the same. Okay. But the height will be very different. So which one has got more variation, and if what sample size is required if there was more variation? If you're dealing with blood pressure or height. Okay. If the investigator wants to be very confident that the findings of the study is true and not due to chance, will you have to study more people? If the investigator wants to be very confident that the finding of the study is true and not due to chance. Am I audible? Hello?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if the investigator wants to be very confident that the findings of the true, or I just got it like that. What happened is that the 20 students I chose, randomly also the 20 students I chose, they all happen to be tall people. So I just got it by chance. They are not, the class is actually not a very tall class. I randomly asked 10 students whether they got distinction in community medicine, and 8 of them they said they got, and I assumed that that's a very good class. So when I realized that there were only 10 students in that class with distinction, and it so happened that I asked the randomly chose 8 of them. That is possible, right? Even if I randomly choose, it is possible that I can get hold of 8 people, or 8 out of 10 people who got distinction. So I just got it by fluke. That is not the truth. I just got it by chance. I did everything randomly, but still I got the best students. So if the investigator wants to be very confident that the findings are true and not due to chance, will they have to study more people? So the last question may not be very easy for you to answer, but I'm sure you all got the answers right for the first few. Okay. So think of this condition. This is polydactyly. This is a very rare condition. Suppose my thesis is I am an anatomy PG, and my thesis is to find out the prevalence of polydactyly in the community. Is it going to be an easy study? Is there an anatomy PG in this group? Anatomy PG undo, Alapila?
Yes, yes.
Who is the anatomy PG?
Ma'am, I am anatomy PG.
Okay.
Hello.
Suppose this is my thesis. This is your thesis. You have to be studying lots of people, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So your answer to the first question was yes, right?
Prevalence less ആണെങ്കിൽ
Prevalence less
sample
ആണെങ്കിൽ
size should be
sample
more.
size more. So polydactyly പഠിക്കാൻ പോയ ഒത്തിരി പേരെ പഠിക്കണം അല്ലേ?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you knew the answer to the first question. Huh? So whatever you are studying, if it is a very rare condition, you have to study lots of people. But sample size formula, if you check, you realize that 1% കഴിഞ്ഞും കൂടുതൽ കുറച്ച് ആൾക്കാരെ പഠിച്ചാൽ മതി 2%. 3% requires even lesser number. Like that, till 48, 49, 50, till 50, the sample size required decreases. After that, it increases. Okay. The answer to this is common sense. I want you to take, all of you to take 1 minute and try and answer the question. The answer is only common sense. Till 50, it keeps on going down. 3%, 4%, even less than 3%, 5% less than 4%, 6% less than 5%, like that it goes. But 51% requires more than 50%. And the answer is just common sense. It's open for all faculty also. Some of you may be knowing the answer. Community medicine, final year PGs. ആദ്യം community medicine PGs-നോട് ചോദിക്കാം answer. Anybody got the answer? Common sense. Already അറിയാവുന്നവരാണെങ്കിലും പറഞ്ഞോളൂ. Okay, let's ask the community medicine PGs. Srija, any luck? Lakshmi is there?
മോള് വന്നു.
മോള്
ഒന്നും
വന്നു.
കേട്ടില്ല.
Oh, സാരമില്ല. Lakshmi is there? Lakshmi? Anybody? Devraj?
Yeah, ma'am.
Answer to the question.
Yeah, basically, ma'am, when we estimate something 51%, the other side becomes of 49%.
Yeah, എനിക്ക് മനസ്സിലായില്ല. ഞാൻ പറയാം. Suppose you are a forensic PG and you are trying to find out. Yeah, I will explain. You pass with distinction, Devraj. You get 100 marks. But I will not give you 100 marks for a teacher. Sairu madam?
Anuba, Kartika.
Madam, please, madam.
It is 4pq by d squared. Automatically it should come down. Sorry. Q is 100 minus p. The formula.
Yeah, but the formula ഇല്ല. അല്ലാണ്ട് common sense answer എന്താ madam?
അപ്പൊ common sense പറയുമ്പോൾ മറ്റത് കുറയുമല്ലേ?
Okay. ഞാനൊന്ന് explain ചെയ്യട്ടെ madam. Maybe it will be clearer to the others.
Okay.
I am a forensic medicine PG and I am trying to find the prevalence of dextrocardia. Okay. Forensic PG ആരാ ഇവിടെ? Forensic medicine PG. ഇല്ലേ? Okay. So anatomy PG യോട് തന്നെ ചോദിക്കാം. So I am trying to find out the prevalence of dextrocardia. And when the prevalence of dextrocardia becomes 51%, where will I start looking for the heart? Right side or left side?
Right side.
Okay. Then what do you look for? The normal is when polydactyly prevalence is 51%, who is the abnormal person? Person with 5 fingers or 6 fingers?
Those with 5 is abnormal.
Oh,
That's more than
so,
half.
അപ്പൊ എല്ലാവർക്കും മനസ്സിലായില്ലേ? So when something becomes 51%, that becomes the normal thing. Okay. Then what are you trying to find out? The people who 49% who the other side. That is what Karthi madam and Devrat said. Okay. So that is just the application into the formula. So this is a mistake when you make. When I come to the formula, I'll explain it again. So whenever you're trying to find out the prevalence of something, if when you're looking into a sample size, the lowest sample size will be, you will get when. Clear? Okay. Then this I've already explained. Then second question, so the answer to this question, ellarkum kitti kanum, will you need to study lots of people to find out the prevalence of a rare condition? Yes. So it will go increase, and it will be the lowest till the prevalence is 50%. This is a bullseye. Okay. So what the true mean hemoglobin value of males in Kottayam is the center point. If somebody wants to be very sure that they hit the center point itself, they have to study all the persons in all the males hemoglobin. Okay, everybody's hemoglobin should be measured and studied to get the exact center point. But somebody wants to be very close to the center point, within the green ring only, innermost green ring only, he has to study not everybody but little less people. But somebody is like more lenient than that. First pink and green line nadukathe ring inde edakku madi, atrayum precise aya madi. Then he has to study even lesser people. So the more precise you want to study something, like if I want the measurement for lab coats for them to wear in their lab, even around about, if I want to stitch their wedding gown or wedding kurta or a sari blouse, then more precise measurements are required. So how much precision I want my measurements to be needs more precise. I want more people I have to study. If I want to be exactly hit the center point, I need to study everybody. So what sample size would be needed if the investigator wanted the answer to be very close to the true value? Of course, he has to study lots more people. So all of you got yes, I guess. So next question, if you want to bring out the difference of 1 millimeter of mercury of blood pressure between treatment A and treatment B, and if you want to bring out a difference of 20 millimeters, will there be a difference in sample size? There is a difference, small difference between A and B. I want to bring that out. For another drug A and drug B, or treatment A and treatment B, there is a big difference, 20 millimeters. So which will need a bigger sample? Medicine, anesthesia PG is here. Anesthesia, anybody from anesthesia? Nobody. Okay. Anesthesia PG olichirikkuka. Madam, please take note. Anyway, so anybody from anesthesia? No. Okay. So if you want to bring out a difference of 1 millimeter, you have to study lots of people. To bring out a big difference, you need to study a smaller number of people. Okay. Next. So this I have already answered. Smaller the difference, you need to study lots of people. Now before I go to the next question, let's do this exercise. what can you find these are marks of 10 students. There is 100 batch of 100 students in my class, and I am taking a sample of 10. Twice I took one sample of 10, another sample of 10. Can you find the mean mark of group A? All of you, please take a piece of paper. All of you know how to calculate mean. Add up the numbers, divide by 10. Please find the mean height of group A. Now, before that, Karthika madam, can you just look at those two groups and tell me what do you have any comments as a teacher about the they are doing? All of you, please listen to what Karthika madam has to say and then start doing the calculation. Madam, as a teacher, what do you have to say about the two groups? Madam, madam, can you please tell me?
രണ്ടാമത്തെ extreme value. അയ്യോ മാറിയോ?
Sorry.
രണ്ടാമത്തെ I think there are extreme values. ഒരു കൂടുതൽ
extreme values അല്ല ഒരു ഗ്രൂപ്പ് ആയിട്ട് പറയുവാണെങ്കിൽ
അതാണോ ഉദ്ദേശിച്ചത് അറിയില്ല.
അത് തന്നെ ഉദ്ദേശം മാഡം, പക്ഷെ more in lay terms.
റേഞ്ച് കൂടുതലാണെന്ന് തോന്നുന്നു.
So it will have more or less average students in group A, but group B will have some brilliant students, some poor students. Alle, you can look at it and say that, right?
ഇത് മാർക്സ് ആയിരുന്നോ? ക്ലാസിന്റെ
marks ആണ്.
That I missed.
Okay. Now let's calculate the mean marks of group A and group B. All of you please calculate the mean mark of group A and group B. Take your phone and look, add all the marks and divide by 10. Then add all the marks of group B and divide by 10. Okay. ഉത്തരം കിട്ടിയൊരു പറയോ?
Madam, 50.
50. Group A is 50 and group B is?
Group B also 50.
Okay. So if I just tell you the mean marks, will I be able to bring out the difference in these two groups that Sairu madam just mentioned? She looked at it and said one group has average students and one group has very good students and very poor students. But if I just convey to you their mean marks, I'm not able to bring out the difference. So Srija, tell me, what is the other thing you would want to know other than the mean, so that it will convey the difference between group A and group B? If I tell you these are the mean marks, what is that? Correct.
Standard deviation.
Standard deviation. So Srija, being a community medicine person, she knows that simply by knowing the means, it's not enough to convey. What are we trying to do? We are trying to convey what is the class, how good the marks are. Okay, if I just say the mean marks, it will not tell everything. It will not tell the part that these are a batch of average students and the other batch, it is good students, bad students, and average students. So she wants the standard deviation also. So the standard deviation, it's a very simple calculation. So if you do the calculation, you will realize that sample 1, the standard deviation is 7.59, and sample 2, the standard deviation is 15.14. So that is what Smairu madam said. First is a kind of uniform group, average students, mean mark is 50. And the second group, there are very good students and very bad students, and there is lot of variation in the marks. Okay, so simply mean will not tell you the story. You need the standard deviation also. Okay, so I'll tell you another example. So more variability among a population, it means that the standard deviation is high. This is the advertisement for you, the cloth line called United Colors of Benetton. They always use people from different races. So this is one ad. Is it visible? Okay, this is another ad of UBC, United Colors of Benetton. Okay, UCB. So what they have, suppose I am a dermatology PG. Is there a dermatology PG in the group?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, can you introduce yourself?
I'm Anita K, madam.
Okay, Anita. Anita, tell me. Suppose I am trying to find the suppose I am trying to find the mean skin tone of this group. Do I have to study lots of people or one or two?
Lots of people, ma'am.
Lots of people, right? I will have to study lots of people, not just one. If I just select a very light skinned person, I will go wrong. Too light skinned person, very wrong. Too dark skinned person, very wrong. So this is the ad for United Colors of Benetton. Don't go away. I have one more question for you. This is the ad for Shima Tea. If I want to study the mean skin tone of this group, how many I have to study? One. All of them have similar skin tone, so all of them are fair. Isn't it true?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So what is different between these two? Mean, standard deviation. What is different? Yeah, right. What is different? What is this? Which has got a higher standard deviation of skin tone?
The previous one, ma'am.
Yes, very good, very good. Okay, this has got a higher standard deviation. Huh? So, Indiakar eppozhum fair skinned ആൾക്കാരെ വെച്ച് advertise ചെയ്യുള്ളൂ. Okay, we all have this thing that fair is pretty. Huh? So, to study the mean skin tone of this group, we just have to pick one because everybody is fair. Huh? While in this, if you want to study the mean skin group, you can't do it. You have to study at least 5 people, at least 5. Huh? So this. So now let's answer the question. What sample size? Variance means more standard deviation. So what sample size is required if there was a very large variance? You just said the answer, Anita. Which will require more sample size? You said you need to study lots of
variance.
people, no? Yeah, so more standard deviation means more people. So let's answer the question. Suppose you want to study the blood pressure of first MBBS students and height of blood pressure. Anita, which do you expect to have a higher standard deviation?
Height.
Okay. Height, very good. Height will have a higher standard deviation. Okay, so if you want to study something with a greater variance, you need to study more people. Okay. So that question is answered. Now, last one. If the investigator wants to be very confident that the finding is true and not due to chance, will you have to study more people? This is a little tricky question to answer. For that, you need to know some amount of inferential statistics. Okay. I know that you have gone through the inferential statistics, but it is a very difficult topic. So we'll rush through the important things again. What is this all about? To answer this question, you need to know that. So whenever you are you can't study everybody. You can, whenever you can study only a sample. So whenever you study, because you study only a sample, one type of error occurs, that is called a sampling error. And then there are errors other than sampling error called non-sampling errors. So what is sampling error? Sampling error is something that will invariably occur if you study a sample. If you don't study everybody, everybody, and if you study only a sample, this sampling error will happen. The only way to eliminate sampling error is not to sample. That is, study everybody. But there are some non-sampling errors. So let's go to the first story of me studying the height. I made some. Hannah Mariam, can you mute yourself? Hannah Mariam. Can somebody mute Hannah Mariam?
Yeah, there's some technical issue, madam. I can't trying to mute or I can't. I don't know why.
Okay. Then somebody call Hannah Mariam because this is a very important part. Okay. I think
Yeah.
Manu, you got muted.
Madam, I tried
I got
muting
muted.
everyone because there's no way.
No, Hannah Maria must be having a friend or co-PG
Yeah,
or
ma'am,
somebody.
it's okay, ma'am. She has quit.
Okay, fine. Okay, so sampling error and non-sampling error. Srija, can you answer my question? What are the non-sampling error is the same as bias? What are some of the other mistakes I made? Mistakes I made when I did the study. Let's go back to the story of me measuring the height. Other than sampling from the basketball team, the way I took the height, what did I do wrong, Srija? Two things mainly.
Add a shoe.
Very good. I measured them without a shoe, with the shoe. Okay. So if I measured with the shoe and I take the measurements and I calculate the sample size, no statistician can help me. Okay. Because different people will be, can I just subtract 3 centimeters from everybody's height? No, because I don't know whether everybody was wearing shoe. I don't know whether the heel of the shoe was the same for everybody. Whether somebody was wearing flat, somebody was wearing chappal, somebody wasn't wearing anything. Okay, so nothing. So that is a problem with my study design, my methodology. Nothing in statistics can correct that. The only way to correct it is to go back and measure their heights again. Okay, self-reported heights. Is that okay? No, it is not okay. Yeah, I have to measure it myself. I have to use a stadiometer and make sure that I measure that myself. I should make sure that I know that I am trained to take the measurement. If I take 170 centimeter and say it's 170, it should be 170. I shouldn't go wrong with the measurement. So those type of errors are called non-sampling errors. That you can correct to a very great extent. And that only one person can correct, it is the investigator. So how do I do that? I go picture and I see how others have measured height, what all mistakes happen to them. Okay, and what all things, whether self-reported diabetes versus actual measurement. So is it okay to take self-reported diabetes and say that they are all diabetes and there is an association between diabetes and adherence? So whatever. So all these are non-sampling errors. This can be corrected only by doing the study correctly. Sample size or sampling has got nothing to do with it. These are issues with methodology. How will I know where I can go wrong? You can talk to people who have done it before. You can read the articles of people who have done it before. Learn from the mistakes. Use your common sense. Use your teacher's experience. Use your guide's experience and figure out where you can go wrong and correct all that. You can correct it to a great extent. I'm not saying that you will be perfect, but you can correct it to a great extent. But sampling error cannot be corrected. Unless you study everybody, there will be sampling error. The only way to correct sampling error is not to sample, take everybody. So that is not possible. So that is all about sampling error. So this is a picture. Okay, I am trying to compare, see whether jar A and jar B are similar. Okay. Jar A and jar B are full of sticks and balls. Since I couldn't draw balls and sticks, I put 0 as balls and 1 as stick. Okay, please pardon me. I'm very bad with these things. So think that 0s are balls and 1 are sticks. Jar A, I don't know what is inside jar A. I don't know what is inside jar B. I'm trying to find out whether jar A and jar B is different. I can't open it and see what is inside. I can only take a sample. So I put my hand inside the jar and I took out 10. That is sampling, right? Since I couldn't study 100 people, I took sample of 10. Since I couldn't see what is inside, study everything inside the jar, I took a small sample. I took out some things from it. So when I took out from jar A, I got 9 balls and 1 stick. And from jar B, I got 8 sticks and 2 balls. Clear? Devraj, clear? Is it clear, Devraj?
Yeah, ma'am, yeah.
Okay, fine. So when I got 9 balls and 1 stick, can I assume that jar A, there are 90% balls and 10% sticks? Can I do that? Because I got nine balls and 1 stick, can I assume that the jar has 90% balls and 10% sticks? Okay, no. It is possible that it has 90 sticks and 10 balls, and by chance I got 9 balls and 1 stick. It's
Yes.
possible, right? That is also a possibility, but is it a big possibility that it, and I got 9 out of the 10 balls? Just like the example I said, there are only 10 people with distinction in the class, and even after randomly picking people, I got 8 people with distinction. It is possible, right? But it is unlikely. Okay, so I did that with jar A. I took a sample and I said 9 balls and 1 stick, and assumed that 90 balls and 10% sticks. Then I went to jar B. Can you assume that in jar B there are 20% balls and 80% sticks? I can't assume that also. It is possible that it has 90 balls and 10 sticks, and by chance we got 2 balls and 8 sticks. That is also a possibility, right? Yes. So based on these 2 samples, 9 balls and 1 stick I got from jar A, and 8 sticks and 2 balls from the other one, I told that jar A and jar B are different. Okay. One has 9 balls, the other has 2 balls. But you yourself know that I could have gotten it by it is I can't make such assumptions. So whenever you are sampling something, okay, there is a problem that what you are getting it is by chance. When I actually went and looked into the jars, oh sorry, I think that I put the slide somewhere else, or I didn't put the slide. Actually, when I when I opened the jars, I found that these 2 are very similar jars, and it contains equal number of sticks and balls. It contained equal number of sticks and balls. So when I took sampled from jar A, I got 9 balls and 1 stick. When I sampled from jar B, I got 8 sticks and 2 balls. What happened there? Only by chance. So whenever you study a sample, whenever you are not studying everybody, whatever you get could be due to chance. All of you can accept the statement. I'll state it again. Whenever you're not studying everybody, whenever you're studying only a sample, there is a possibility that whatever you got is by chance. Okay, I'll try and show one more example. I made sambar and I put 1 lady's finger in it. Just one big bowl of sambar and just put 1 lady's finger in it. And I took 1 scoop. That is my sample. Okay. There is a chance that this scoop will contain the out of the 2 pieces of, I cut that lady's finger and put it into 2. Put it at 2 pieces. There is a chance that when I take a scoop, I'll get that piece. Okay. If I get a piece, if I am not aware that this bowl has only 1 lady's finger, and I am a person allergic to lady's finger, so I take a scoop and I get a lady's finger and I say that, oh, this has got lady's finger, I will not eat it. And I won't say allergic. I will say I am a person who does not like lady's finger. I take a scoop and I get a lady's finger and I refuse to eat the sambar. Actually, it is a very tasty sambar and it does not have any significant amount of lady's finger. But I took the sample and I found out of the 2 small pieces of lady's finger, by chance, my scoop contained 1 and I rejected it. I said, I don't want it. It was wonderful sambar. So there was another person who likes ladyfinger. He or she took a scoop and that didn't have lady's finger. So he ate it. Okay. So whenever you sample and make an assumption, you can go wrong. So whenever you have an association, when you find an association, there are three possibilities. First possibility that it is true. That is actually true. That is the mean value. Second is that you got it by chance. It was not a lady sambar without lady's finger, but the sample you took did not have lady's finger. So whatever you got, it was by chance. And the third is you measured it wrong. There was a lot of bias that crept in, like the way I didn't measure it properly. I took self-reported heights. I didn't take off their shoes. Okay, so all that is bias. That you can correct. But what happens by chance, you cannot correct. Okay, so whenever there is an association, there is a possibility that you are going wrong. There is a chance that whatever you have found is wrong. Okay, so that is called a sample observation. It is due to biological variability. It is just that I took 10 people randomly, but they happen to be very tall people. It just happened by chance, and I calculate the mean height like that. They just happen to be tall people. It is none of my fault. So whenever I measure something, there is a chance that I can go wrong. It can be minimized, but it can never be avoided. The only way to correct it is study everybody. So just think, the more I move towards this whole sample, suppose there are 100 students and I'm taking, my sample size is increasing to 90 and 92. I am leaving less and less to chance. And when I study everybody, I am leaving nothing to chance. So sampling error can be minimized only when you stop sampling. It can be zero only when you stop sampling, when you study everybody. Then what can you do? Something will happen. Sample padicha mistake varum. So what can you do? You can set the standard how much you are willing to err. Okay. If you are studying 90 students out of 100, you are willing to err only less. But if you are willing to err a lot more, you can study less people. You can study 50. But you are saying, I am willing to leave lots to chance. So I am studying only 50. The other person say, I don't want to leave anything to chance, so I want to study all the 100. Somebody else is saying, it's okay with me if I leave something to chance, I will study 90 people, it's okay. 10% I leave to chance. And somebody else says, I will leave 5% to chance. I'll study 95 people. Okay, so that is a standard which is set by the investigator. It will invariably occur, but 95%, 95 people I study, I am leaving 5% to chance. Okay, so that is sampling error. So whenever you are studying true relationships, suppose I was studying an association between two things, autism and working mothers. You believe that there is an association between autism and working mothers. Who is the pediatrics PG here? Pediatrics. Pediatrics? Nobody? Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, ma'am, perfectly
Okay.
audible.
Okay. Okay, then psychiatry PG, psychiatry.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Suppose you think that your guide thinks that there is an increased number of autistic children born to working mothers. And he or she asks you to do a study. Okay. So there is the truth, whether there is an association between autism and working mothers. So when you are trying to find that, you studied it and suppose there is an association. Imagine there is no association between autism and working mothers. But isn't it possible by the reason I just mentioned that anything can happen to chance when you are studying something. When you study the association between autism and working mothers, you can find an association. Is it possible? What is your
Yes.
name?
Ma'am, my name is Nisha.
Sorry?
Nisha.
Okay. So Nimisha, tell me, Nimisha it is, right?
Nisha, ma'am. Nisha.
Nisha.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Nisha. So there is a possibility that there is no association between autism and working mothers. And you went and studied, and by chance you got an association. Is it a possibility?
Yes, it is a possibility, ma'am.
You agree to me after seeing my previous few slides, you agree to me that can happen? It is not
Yes,
your
ma'am.
fault. Okay.
Yes.
Then what type of error are you committing here? Look at this table and tell me what is the error you are committing. When there is no association in reality, you find there is an association. What is the error you are committing?
Type 1 error, ma'am.
When is no association present in reality, you are finding an association.
It's a false positive.
It is a false positive error. All of you agree? All of you agree? Somebody say yes or no? Yes. Okay. Suppose there is an association between autism and working mothers, and Nisha finds that there is no association. What is the error that you are committing?
It's a false negative, ma'am.
False negative. Okay. And suppose there is an association and Nisha also finds there is an association, it is called correct. Everybody is happy. Okay. And there is no association and you also find that there is no association. That is also good. Okay. That is the true happy thing. Okay. There is no association and you also find there is an association. That is a happy state. The other one is a correct state. There is no, okay. But two ways you can go wrong. When you can say when something is there, it is not there. And you can also say when something is there, it is not there. You understand? Did I mix it up? When something is there, you say it is not there. And when something is not there, you say it is there. So these are the two errors that you can commit. This is a more simplified version. The first one is type 1 error and the second is type 2 error. Okay. Which do you think, Nisha, which do you think is a more grave mistake to make? To say something is there for, sorry?
False positive.
Okay, you say that it's false positive. I agree with you. Is there a radiotherapy PG here? Radiotherapy? PG undo Alapila.
ഉണ്ട് madam.
എല്ലാരും ഒളിച്ചിരിക്കുകയാണ് ദേവരാജ്. Everybody is in hiding. Okay, so if you are a radiotherapy PG and there is this very effective cancer drug, very cheap, which can be locally made, and you are doing a study to find out whether that things work, and it actually works, and you fail to find it out. There is a difference in life's survival if you use that drug. And you did the study and by chance you missed it. Isn't that a grave mistake?
Yes,
Raj,
madam.
don't you think it's a grave mistake? Okay, so
Yes,
both
madam.
mistakes are grave. Both mistakes are grave. But generally we think selling a drug to somebody saying that it works when it is actually not working is a graver mistake. But in certain situations, even type 2 error can be very grave. So both error you should try to avoid. So how can you, anyway, you all understood that this is an error which will invariably happen if you study a sample. So and the only way to do is to set a standard. So now let's come to that. I think this is clear to everybody. Chance of a false positive discovery is type 1 error and probability of missing an association when it exists is type 2 error. Okay. So this I already explained. So there is a solution to this. Committing or setting a standard how much you are willing to err. So let's come back to the other example of marks. Okay. There are 100 students and I take samples of 10 from that. Okay. So if you ask me how many samples of 10 can I take from this 100 people, how many times I can sample 10 people? Infinite number of samples I can take. I take 10, then I again take another 10, then another 10. Like that, I can take infinite samples from this 100 people of sample size 10. Suppose I did that. I took infinite samples from you. All of you should understand what I am doing, okay? I am taking samples of 10. Every time my sample size is 10. But I am doing it infinite number of times. And I am plotting it into a graph. I will get a graph like this. It is like that. It is always like that. So what does this graph, each point of this graph constitute? Srija, can you tell me what constitute each point of this graph? Is it
Frequent.
mark of individual students or something else? This is the mean I get from each sample. The mean I get from each sample. So if I plot a graph like this, every point makes, from the first sample I got one mean 50. From the second sample I got another mean 50. From the third sample I got another mean which was 52. The fourth sample I got 48. So every time I sample 10 people, I'll get a sample mean. So I get infinite number of sample means. So each point here is not a mark of a person. It's the mean mark of each sample. Is that clear to everybody? Okay. This is a graph which has mean marks of each sample. So if I draw a graph, it will be like this. So this is the theorem that will help you understand alpha error. Okay. Central limit theorem states that 95% of the sample means, if I do what I just told you, that take infinite number of samples and calculate, plot the means, central limit theorem tells you that 95% of the sample means will lie between two standard error of the population mean. I'll say it once again. Central limit theorem tells you that 95% of the sample mean will lie within two standard error of the population mean. Okay. So this is the center point is the population mean, and 95% of the sample means will lie between two standard error of the population mean. Okay. Okay. So that is clear to you. I'll repeat the sentences. Don't worry if you don't get it. Okay. So what do I have? I am not taking infinite samples and calculating infinite sample means and plotting the graph. I am studying only one sample. So what do I have with me? I have the sample mean of my sample. I selected 10 people and I calculated the sample mean. I have the sample mean of my sample. I have a formula which will tell you the standard error of the whole graph. From the sample, I can get two things. I can get my sample mean, and I can get the standard error for this graph. You don't have to know the formula. Just think that by studying one sample, I can get two things. What are the things you will get? You will get your one sample mean and the standard error of this graph. Now, what am I trying to find out here? I am trying to find out the population mean. I am trying to find out the mean value of the whole population. Mean hemoglobin of all of Kottayam. What do I have? I studied a sample of 352 people, just a number. I studied 352 people, and I have the sample mean of my sample mean. Let the population mean be male hemoglobin population mean be 14, and the sample mean is 12. Okay, so that is just one example. So what does the central limit theorem state? The central limit theorem state that 95% of the sample means will lie between two standard error. So I'll rephrase that central limit theorem for you. I will say that if I get one sample mean of mean hemoglobin value of 352 people I studied, I can say that this sample mean I got is lying within two standard error of the population mean. Or I can say it otherwise and say that my population mean is somewhere between two standard error this way and that way of the sample mean. Okay, I'll say it once more. There is a population mean which exists, which we are interested in, which we are trying to find out. But we can't study everybody. What we have is a sample and the sample mean. From that sample mean, we also can, from that sample, we get one more thing, which is the standard error. So we are trying to find the population mean, which we don't know. So the central limit theorem tells you that all 95% of the sample means, maybe including yours also, is lying between two standard error of the population mean. Or in otherwise, you can say that you can find the population mean somewhere between two standard error this way or that way of your sample mean. Srija?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you just explain how much you understood to the class? Go ahead, it's okay.
Ma'am, if I found it mean hemoglobin of 15
Okay.
with standard deviation 2.5.
Standard error.
Okay, standard error of 2.5.
Okay.
Then I can do that the population mean will be somewhere between 12.5 to 17.5.
Your standard error is 2.5. So it is 2.5 into 2, 5.
5.
Okay. So what was your sample mean? 14.
15, ma'am.
15. Okay. So you can say that the population mean is somewhere between 10 and 20.
Yeah.
20.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So the population mean, suppose it was 14. I said it was 14. In real, we don't know that. I am telling you it is 14. Srija got 15 and Srija also calculated the standard error as 2.5. Srija can say that I can be 95% confident that the population mean hemoglobin value of the population is lying somewhere between 15 and 20. Where she doesn't know, but she's sure that it's somewhere there. Okay. So converting it in the terms of chance, what we are talking about, when you are saying you are willing to commit an alpha error of 5%. When you are saying you are willing to commit an alpha error of 5%, you are otherwise saying that you are 95% confident of your findings. So Srija is confident that there is a 95% chance what she is saying is true. The true value is lying within two standard error this way or that way. So I am sure that you would not have understood everything what I just tell you, but at least now you know where your 5% or 0.05 p-value significance coming from. It is coming from 95%, 5%. Okay. 95, when you get a p-value less than 0.05, you are 95% confidence that the true value is somewhere there between two standard error. There is still a 5% chance that the real hemoglobin value is nowhere there. It is somewhere else. That is a 5% error. But you are willing to commit that. So when Nisha is saying that there is an association between autism and working mothers, she knows, I know, Sairu madam knows that there is a 5% chance that there is no association and what she found is wrong. So that is where the p-value comes from. Okay. So, Madam, Saira Madam, do you have anything to add? I think only that concept is needed. P-value 5.0 less than 0.05 means you are 95% confident about the finding, and you are willing to say that 5% I am willing to leave to chance.
Maybe
Madam,
maybe I'll put it in this way. P-value less than 0.05 means the probability of this finding, whatever you have, that finding occurring due to chance is 5 out of, p-value less than 0.05 LA. So it's significant. That means the probability of it, probability of being the false positive, LA.
Yes.
5
So
out of,
whenever you are saying something, whenever you say that, okay, I got it significant, there is an association, you should always know that still there is a chance that you are 5% wrong. You are only 95% confident about what you are saying. Okay.
probability of that occurring due to chances 5 out of 5.
How confident you are about it is, you are 95% confidence. You still have a 5% doubt that this is not the hemoglobin value is nowhere there within 2 standard errors. It is somewhere else. You are only 95% sure about it. So that is a standard which is set by the investigator. So this is the formula to find out the standard error. So that is where your every sample size formula has an alpha and beta value. How much you are willing to err. So where does this 95% come from? It comes from the central limit theorem, which says that 95% of the values is within 2 standard error. Okay, so that is where you just need to know where that 5 comes from, where the P of 0.05 or P value less than 0.05 comes from. It comes from the central limit theorem graph we just talked about. So this is just a standard set by you. Okay. But generally the scientific community says that if you are 95% sure about something, it is true. If you are 95% sure about something, it is true. It is not based on any logic or anything. Generally, scientific community believes you if you are 95% sure of something. Actually, it was a standard set for pesticides by an agricultural researcher, but we are still following it. Madam, can you give me one second?
Okay, meanwhile, I can say that you can take it in another way also. Supposing you are replicating your methodology the same way 100 times. Okay, 95 out of 100 times, you'll be getting the same result. 5 out of 100 times, you may be getting a different one.
Okay, you can put it that way also. Yeah. So you should realize that this 95% when something is 95%, when somebody is 95% sure of something, everybody believes them. Even when Nisha says there is an association between autism and working mothers, after her study, all of you should be cautious enough to believe her. You should all know that there is a 5% chance that she is wrong. Okay. Suppose Nisha wants to be 99% sure about her findings, then she should be studying more people, right? Okay. So what happens when she wants to be 99% sure? When she wants to be 99% sure, she has to study more people. When you come to the formula, you'll understand. When you want to be 95% sure about something, you are putting an alpha error at 5% or alpha at 0.05, p-value of 0.05, and you are using 1.96 in your formula. But if you want to be sure 99%, if Nisha wants to believe that there is an association between autism and working mothers. If Sairu madam will believe Nisha only if she is 99% sure. If the pediatricians will recommend mothers not to work only if they are 99% sure that there is an association. Then she is willing to err only 1% and her p-value is 0.01 and the formula she has to use 2.576. And when you come to the formula, you will know that you actually square this number. So here you are squaring 1.96, which is like squaring 2. You will get 4. 1.96 square is close to 4. Here you are squaring 2.5 will give you, it will give you 6.25, right? So when you are multiplying some value with 4 here, for if you are 99% sure, you have to multiply it with 6.25. So something into 4 versus something into 6. So what is Nisha gaining by being more sure? She's being more sure, she is leaving only 1% to chance, but she has to study more people. Nisha, if you want to be 100% sure there is an association between working mothers and autism, how many people you have to study?
The entire community.
You have to study the whole population. Every working mother you have to study. Clear? So, but generally everybody will believe Nisha, or every journal, Indian Academy of Pediatrics, Indian Journal of Pediatrics, national, international journals, everybody will believe Nisha's finding if she says, I am 95% sure of it. And I've set my standard of 0.05 and I've used 1.96 in my formula. Everybody will believe her. But just know that this is just a standard which is set by Nisha. Suddenly autism, and it is not that suddenly after at 95% there is a relationship. It is not that. It is what is the standard you are setting for yourself to believe something. I'll give you one example to explain this. I'll rush through the formulas. Don't worry. I will not take too much time. Suppose I am very fond of Mysore silk sarees. Okay. And my husband goes for a conference to Mysore. I ask him to buy me a saree. I tell him, if you find a red Mysore silk saree, which is worth less than 10,000 rupees, please buy it for me. What did I tell him? If you find a red Mysore silk saree worth less than 10,000 rupees, please buy it for me. So he comes back from the conference. He shows me a picture of a beautiful Mysore silk saree. And I asked him, what is the price? He said, I didn't buy it. I said, where is the saree? He said, I didn't buy it. So I asked him why. He said, it cost 9,999 rupees. Sorry, it cost 10,000 rupees. He says me, I didn't buy it because it cost 10,000 rupees. So I said, why? I told you to buy it. He says, no, you told me to buy it if it is less than 10,000 rupees. So even if it was 9,999, I would have bought it. Is he wrong? Nisha, is he wrong? He's not listening to the class. So you can tell. Is he wrong?
Madam, you said less than 10,000, right? And the saree
Yeah.
is 9,999.
No. The saree, he didn't buy it because it was 10,000 rupees. He would have bought it if it was 9,999.
Okay, ma'am.
So what do you think? Should she have bought it or not? It's a very beautiful red saree.
Based on a technicality, it's wrong.
Yeah, so that's exactly what it is. Okay. So you said here, I told him less than 10,000. So people believe you if you're 95% sure. Suppose somebody says, I will not believe you if you're 95% sure. I want to be 99% sure. Then nobody will buy your saree. Nobody will buy your hypothesis. You clear? So it is a standard which is set by you. So the more confident you want to be about your finding, you have to study more people. Clear? So these are the standards which you find in the formulas. Z alpha, don't bother too much about this Z1 minus alpha by 2, one-sided, two-sided and all that. It's a little complicated for you. I'll just stay one line. If you are very sure that giving protein mixture and carbohydrates to malnourished children will only increase their height. If you're very sure, you can use one-sided test. Okay. Okay, you can see that if you're using one-sided test, even for a 5% error, you have to use 1.64 instead of 1.96. So that will bring. So if you're very sure that if your finding is going to be only in one direction, you can study less people. But giving a drug and reducing the BP, you are not sure in some people whether it will increase or decrease. You're not sure it can go this way or that way. You have to use a two-sided test. So in some very rare situations, you can use a one-sided test and it will require a less sample size. But for two-sided test, you will need more sample size because these are the formulas you substitute. So alpha error or 95% confidence is just a standard that you set for yourself. Clear? So don't worry if you didn't understand anything. Just understand one point. If you want to be 95% confident of your final finding, you should put 1.96 in the place of Z alpha. Okay? And that is all you need to carry. And where does this 95 and 5 comes from? It comes from the central limit theorem graph, which says that 95% of the times the means will lie within 2 standard errors. That is where this 95 and 5 is coming from. If you're a community medicine PG, you need to know a little more, but all other PGs need to know where this 5 and 95 came from. And what do I mean when I say p-value less than 0.05? It only means that you are only 95% confident and there is still a 5% chance that you are wrong. Okay? So that is about alpha. Similarly, there is a set value set for beta also. How much are you able to, there is a difference between the two drugs and how much are you able to bring it out. Okay, so power of the study means power to bring out the difference. Failure to bring out the difference is beta error and the power to bring out the difference is the power. So the more power you need, that you want to bring out 90% power you need to put 1.2 instead of 0.8 if you want only 80% power. So Nisha, can you tell me if there is a difference in between working mothers and non-working mothers with respect to autism, if you want to bring out the difference, if you want to be 90% power to bring out the difference or 95% power to bring out the difference, which all values will you substitute? For 90% power, which value will you substitute at Z alpha, Z beta, sorry? If you want to be 90% power, 1.282 and 95% power to bring out the difference, if a difference exists, 1.6. So it will increase the formula. One you are multiplying by 1.2 and the other one you are multiplying by 1.6. The more power you need for your study to bring out a difference, you need to put a higher Z beta value. Clear? So that is the answer to the last question. If the investigator wants to be very confident about the finding, then they need to study more people. Clear? So everything in the formula is explained. Now I'll just rush through the formulas. So, but we have to know, you can't go blindly and find something. Okay. Suppose you want to find out the prevalence of something or the mean value of hemoglobin. Whenever you're talking about all these things, you can't go blind. You have to have you have to have some idea where it is lying. Like Srija knows that it is somewhere around 14. Only then you can talk about precision and all that. So where will you get that 14 from? Either you can search the literature and find out what other people have done, or you can, if nobody has done a study like yours, you can do a pilot study and find out the prevalence. So how will you know around where the variable is lying? You can find it from literature search, or you have to study a small number like 30 people or 20 people and find out the prevalence or whatever, fine, mean value. You don't know. No literature tells you the hemoglobin value. You have to study 30 males in Kottayam and find out the mean, around where it is lying. Only then you can start working on the formulas. So when you're trying to find the proportion of a parameter in your study, suppose you are an ENT PG and you're trying to find out the proportion of people with obstructive sleep apnea who complains of snoring among patients coming to your OPD. There are lots of patients coming to your OPD complaining of snoring. You want to find out of all the people who snore, how many have obstructive sleep apnea. Or Srija wants to find out the prevalence of obstructive sleep apnea in the community. So you all know that one of the things that matters is the Z alpha, which is conventionally set at 1.96. So Z alpha is already set. Srija wants to be 95% sure about her results. So she sets Z alpha and she puts 1.96 here. 1.96 square is almost equivalent to 4. So this becomes 4. So that is the 4 PQ by D squared formula everybody talks about. Okay. 1.96 squared becomes 2 squared 4 PQ by D squared. Okay. Then Srija will go to the literature and find out what is the prevalence of obstructive sleep apnea in the population from other studies. If you are ENT PG, you will find out, you go to the literature and find out what proportion of people coming to the OPD in Trivandrum Medical College OPD had obstructive sleep apnea. So she goes to the literature and she finds that it is 30%. So she got her P. P, where did she get? She got from previous literature. If you don't have previous literature, take 30 people who come to your OPD with snoring, study them and find out the prevalence yourself. So Z alpha is 1.96. Population is the proportion of the factor or the prevalence of the factor under study. Q is 100 minus P and D is the precision. What is the precision? Srija wants to find out something which is 40. How precise? Think about the bullseye. How precise she wants. She wants it to be, she is willing to err only 1%. She wants it between 39% and 41%. She wants it very close to the value. She'll have to study lots of people, right? So the more precision you want, the less you are willing to err. This error is different from alpha and beta error, okay? This is also called error, but this is a different error, okay? This is not alpha error or beta error. This is the amount of error she was willing to make from 40. She wants to get it between 35 and 45. When the actual truth is 40, whether she wants to be very precise and get it between 39 and 41, or she wants to be less precise and is happy getting between 35 and 45. This is very different from Z alpha and Z beta. Okay. So here Srija is being very strict. Her original prevalence is 40 and she is willing to err only 1%. This becomes 1 into 1. Okay. She's willing to err 2%. It becomes 2 into 2. So just think of the second question that I asked. The more precise you want, the less you are willing to err. Denominator is square in here, okay? So the sample size drastically changes. The more precise you want something to be, the more people you want to study, you have to study. 1% error needed ne കഴിഞ്ഞ് 4 ഇരട്ടി ആൾക്കാരെ പഠിക്കണം. അല്ല സോറി 2% എററിനെ 2% എററിന് വില്ലിംഗ് ആളെ കഴിഞ്ഞും 4 ഇരട്ടി ആൾക്കാരെ പഠിക്കണം 1% എറർ വില്ലിംഗ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ആൾക്കാർ. മനസ്സിലായോ? So the more precise you want, the more people you have to study because it is put in the squared under denominator. So that is for descriptive study. Let's look at an example. From a pilot study, it was reported that among headache patients, 28% had vascular headache. 28% she got from pilot study. You can get it from literature also. It was decided to conduct a new study with a precision of 5%. Srija is happy if she gets between 33 and 23. Okay. How many patients are needed for the present study? So the sample size is P is 20, Q is 100 minus P. D is 5%. She's willing to err between, when she's getting 28%, she's willing to err, she's be happy even if she gets between 33 and 23. She doesn't want to be hit the bullseye that much. Then the value is 309. Suppose this, she was willing to err even more, her sample size will even go less. She's willing to err only 0.1%, this becomes 0.01, it gets squared, and since it's a decimal number, this will shoot up like anything. Okay, so that is the formula. Here I want to talk about one thing, absolute versus relative. Whenever you're talking about precision, it is the percentage of 28. Okay, here I have put the absolute precision as 5%. But you have, suppose this prevalence was 7%. Prevalence was 7%. Is it okay to err 5%, Srija? Suppose you are trying to find something, the prevalence is 7%. Is it okay to err 5% this way and that way of 7%?
No, ma'am.
No, it doesn't make any sense, right? So
Yes.
whatever you put as denominator, you should always think as how much percentage of P it is. Suppose you are trying to find the prevalence of something which is only 2%. Is it willing, if you are willing to err 5% this way and that way, it doesn't make any sense. Okay. So this is another formula where you are not looking at proportion, looking at the mean value. Like I said, mean hemoglobin percentage. Then it is a different formula you're using. Look at the formula. It has got standard error in the formula. Okay, I told you, no, schema T, you need to study only less people because this is the standard deviation and it is the square of the standard deviation. Yes, standard deviation is 2.1 gram. It is the square of the standard deviation you are taking. So the more standard deviation something has got a standard deviation of 2. 2 square is 4. Another thing has got a standard deviation of 4. 4 square is 16. So for the first sample, you need to study 4 and the second sample, you need to study 16. So multiplying by 16. So the more standard deviation something has, the more you have to study. Just look at the formula. So here, what is D? D is again, here the mean in a health survey of school children, it is found that the mean hemoglobin of 55 boys of 10.5 gram. Am I using 10.5 in this formula? No, we are not using 10.5 in the formula, but we are taking 10.8. 0.8 is when the value that you're trying to find is 10.5 gram, you are willing to err 0.8 gram this way or that way. That you are using in the formula. So the percentage of the mean you are using in the formula. Is it clear? When you are using mean, you have Z alpha. Of course, you have Z alpha. Then you have the standard deviation. I told you the more variation something has, the more people you have to study. So you have S squared in the numerator. And then you want to be how precise you want. The real value is 10.5. How much precision you want. If you want to get it between 10.4 and 10.6, you are allowing a variability of only 0.1. Then your sample size will shoot up because you have to take the square of 0.1 instead of taking square of 0.8. Clear? So the more precise you want, this is the formula when you're using mean. Then you're comparing two proportions. For example, you're an anesthesia PG, you're using two techniques. And from the literature, you found that in one group, there is, when you're using one anesthetic technique, you are getting 60% pain relief. And the other one, you're getting only 40% pain relief. Where you get it? This is you get from the literature or from your pilot study. So you substitute it in the formula. Again, there is Z alpha, Z beta, which you set for yourself. Then there is all this. You need not know this. The community medicine people will do the calculation for you. And the difference. See, here you are trying to bring out the difference of 60 and 20. 20% difference you are trying to bring out. So there is a big difference that you're trying to find out. So you have to study only less people because it is in the denominator. Suppose the pain relief was one gives a pain 60% pain relief and the other gives 58% pain relief. You are trying to bring out a difference of 2%. Then you'll have to study more people. Then again, you have two groups. For example, instead of proportion of patients getting pain relief, you are using pain scores. So what do you need? You need the mean standard deviation of pain score in one treatment group, standard deviation of pain score in the other treatment group. Okay, you need standard deviation of pain score in one group with anesthetic A and standard deviation of pain score with anesthetic 2 in the other group. Then you substitute the values. Z alpha, Z beta, standard deviation square divided by what is the mean pain score difference you're trying to bring out. If the pain score difference you're trying to bring out is 10, big difference in pain score, you have to study less people. But if you're trying to bring out a pain score difference which is 2, you have to study lots more. Clear? So that is the formulas. I'm just given you the what is behind all this, what is the funda behind all these values, what each mean stand for. What does standard deviation mean? More standard deviation, more people you have to study. More precision, more people you have to study. More confident you want to be, more people you have to study. Okay, more big difference you want to find out, less people you have to study. So I've just explained to you the funda behind the formula. When you come to the community medicine department to study the difference between two pain scores, between two anesthetics, what all you need to carry? You need to carry your Z alpha, which you already know is 95%. You need to carry your Z beta, which is also 80%. You have to carry the standard deviation of the score with anesthetic A, standard deviation of the score with anesthetic B, pain score with anesthetic B. You are studying two groups. You have to carry the standard deviation of the two groups from the literature. You need to know the mean pain score so that you can decide how much you have, what is the difference in pain score you want to bring out. Okay. So these are the things you should carry. When you are trying to find the proportion of some condition in the OPD, you have to go to the literature and find out the proportion or prevalence from the literature. That is that, and how much you are willing to earn. See, I have a prevalence of 40%, madam. I am willing to earn only 2%. I want, if the prevalence is 40%, I want to get my finding within 38 and 42. And my Z alpha is this. Please give me a sample size. The department will be able to give you, no? Madam.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yes. Yes. So that brings me to the end of the session. This is only about sample size calculation. Okay. Sampling is the next class. Suppose I after a sample size calculation, I realize that I need to study 3 people. How will I choose 3 people from this? Can I take these 3? Can I take these 3? So how will I, now the dermatology PG, can you explain if I want to get a correct mean skin tone, how do I need to sample? Can you just tell me? She left. Which all people you will try to pick up if you want? Anybody can answer. Which all people will you pick up? Nobody. Srija. I want to take 3. I am allowed to take 3. I will take a very dark skin person. I will take a very thin person. And I'll take
And
in between. Okay. For sample size, I already talked to you about how many you need to study. That is 3. How will you say? Well, I select these 3 from this whole set of people is about sampling. That will be the next class. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
Madam.
Thank you, Anuba.
Okay. Thank you. It's a little hard topic. If you
But then if you read if you go through the modules and listen to her lecture, once it is put up in the Moodle, you can understand it all well.
Yeah, and if you don't understand anything also, don't worry. It's a very difficult topic. If you have a very broad concept also, that is okay. We are happy, aren't you, madam? Like at least they have some sense of what is happening. We should be happy, I think.
Yeah.
It's a very tough topic, even for community medicine pages.
Ma'am, as you said,
Anyway, thank you so much.
As you said, if they come readily with the standard deviations and the means and all, we will be giving the sample size in 2 minutes.
Yes, but they should know what they are doing. They should know what they are doing. If they are sure about their designs.
Some of the misconceptions.
Don't get scared. It's okay. Even if you don't know anything.
Some misconceptions are 100 ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ചെറിയ സാമ്പിൾ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ 30 ഉള്ളൂ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ 100 പഠിച്ചാൽ മതി അങ്ങനെയൊന്നും ഇല്ല. It depends on what topic you take, what is your objective, and what are the things you want, what Anuba just explained.
Okay.
That's all.
Shall we call it a day, madam?
Yeah.
Yes. Bye.
Yeah. Bye. Thank you. Good night.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.